How to build strong foundations or basics in breaking. So in breaking, like all other sports or things or even art forms in life, the more solid foundations and the more foundations you have, the higher you can go. Imagine yourself and your skills, your breaking skills, as a building. If you want to build a very high building, so if your goals are so high, you need to have strong foundations. Otherwise, the building is going to collapse. So, for example, if you want to become a very high-level b-boy, you need to know a little bit of everything and compete worldwide, maybe win Red Bull BC1, or if your goals are so high, you need to know a little bit of everything, especially nowadays. Maybe back in the days it was a little bit different. B-boys used to be a little bit more specialized in one style, one thing. There would be the guy who does only power moves, the guy who only do footworks, the flexible style guy, the hand-up style guy, and so on. But nowadays, everyone is getting more and more complete and more creative as well. Especially new generations and kids, they are crazy. They can do everything basically. They are not only very strong in power moves, but also their musicality is on point and they have good fundamentals. Why that? I think because of course the level is increasing, but also the coaches are getting better. So if you want to compete at that level, you need to learn a little bit of everything. You need to focus on your foundations, you need to know the basic steps in order to create new ones. But also if your goal isn't that, it can be applied for everything in life as well, actually. If your goal, instead of winning Red Bull BC1, for example, is about a specific move, for example, I want to learn flares, still, you need foundation for that, especially if you want your flare to be beautiful and to be very high and to be very powerful. You need to work on your flexibility. This is the foundation of the flare. Also on your strength and also on your body control, of course. But I never see a b-boy who is not that flexible who can do a very good and clean flare. Because for a flare, if you want to make it beautiful, you need to open your legs widely. You need to extend your shoulders backwards in this way in order to lift your hips up and to make your flare higher. So you cannot expect to just practice flare, practice, and then get better with flares. You will need to work also on other things, like do a lot of stretching, work a little bit on your strength as well, maybe. It depends case by case, actually. Maybe you also need to learn some other moves because they will still make you develop more body awareness that is always going to be useful for flares as well or for other movements as well. Usually I notice the more moves someone can do, the easier he learns new moves because his body awareness becomes higher. But if you only focus on few moves, for example, you just focus on flares, you just focus on windmill and maybe on one more move, then if you want to learn a new thing, it's going to be very hard. But if you focus instead of these three moves on many other smaller movements, for example, you focus on one steps, you focus on a lot of freezes, you focus on many combinations of easier movements, then it's going to be way more likely that you're going to learn new moves. So try to build a very strong arsenal. More specifically, what are the basics you need? It's very hard to answer these questions because it really depends from each one's subjective goals. Someone's goal can be to win BC1, as I said before, and someone else's goal can be just learning air flares. But in both cases, the two goals are very different. One is very specific, like just air flares, and the other one is very broad. He want to win BC1, so he needs to build a stronger arsenal. But still, in the most specific case about the air flare, even to learn a very specific thing, the more arsenal you build, the better it's going to be to learn air flare. So of course, if someone wants to learn air flare, I'm not going to tell him practice air flares. No, I'm going to tell him practice this, and then once you learn these combos, then practice air flares. And I'm pretty sure you will be very close in doing it. I talk about this concept a lot, but I want to make it very clear. Everyone should really understand that. And if you are not practicing like that already, you should really change the way you practice and focus on foundations a lot first, and don't just practice the goal move that you have or the goal set that you have, the goal combo that you have. Really focus on a little bit easier things first. Make sure these easier things are very solid, and then try your goal move again. And probably it's gonna get better. Okay, I say these two examples about winning BC1 and learning air flares. They are two very different examples of different goals, but still in both cases there are some basics that I always recommend. For example, some footwork basics and some freezes basics. I think in both cases, both to learn air flares, but also in order to be the BC1 world champion, you need to know, for example, some basic footworks and some basic freezes. These are just the fundamentals in breaking. Doesn't really matter your goal. It can be two completely different goals, but if you know these two things, good footwork fundamental and good freezes fundamental, everything everything is gonna get easier. I know there are a lot of power movers, especially back in the days, who didn't learn footworks at all, and they still learn crazy combos. But I think maybe if they learned footworks before, I'm pretty sure they could learn air flares even faster. Because some footworks can be pretty dynamic and can really help you to transfer for air flares. For example, if you do a very dynamic two-step, it's gonna make you develop a lot of body awareness for the swipe, for the flare, that is gonna transfer afterwards to the air flare as well. And the freezes as well. The freezes are very important. For example, if you cannot do a handstand, it's very unlikely that you're gonna learn air flares, of course. But also, if you cannot do a handstand, it's very unlikely that you're gonna become the next BC1 world champion. I'm pretty sure everyone who won BC1 can do a handstand. Or an elbow freeze, for example, or even an elbow freeze on both sides. So there are some basic standards that really everyone should know. I think basic freezes and basic footworks must be learned on both sides, especially nowadays where everyone is getting stronger, everyone is playing with direction changes, with level changes. The more arsenal you have and the more also you're able to switch sides, the better options you have and the more body awareness you will develop. So learn the basics on both sides to have more creative options, or maybe just to have a more balanced body. Keep in mind there are some basics that for me are pretty general. If you have any goal in breaking, you should learn them. Like I said, some footworks and some freezes. But then there are some specific basics that you only need depending on your goal. For example, let's take again the air flare example and the BC1 example. If you want to learn air flares, I will tell you to learn some hand-ups on both sides actually. At least few of them. You don't need to go crazy with hand-ups, but you need to know few hand-ups on both sides as well. But if you want to be the next BC1 world champion, maybe I wouldn't tell you to learn hand-ups. Maybe yeah, they could still help, of course. Maybe few hand-ups can still help, but maybe they are not strictly necessary. Let's say your style is mainly on the floor, kind of like Menno. I'm not even sure if Menno can do some hand-ups on both sides actually. Maybe he can, but I never seen him doing it. But his style is completely different. So this basic, the hand-up, can be a little bit more specific depending case by case. I won't tell everyone to learn hand-ups necessarily. Or for example, if someone wants to only focus on ground power moves, hand-ups is not really needed. If your goal is only learning windmills, baby wheels, tombstone windmills, halos, head spins, these kind of moves, shoulder spins, hand-ups are not needed at all. So yeah, there are generic fundamentals that in my opinion everyone should know, but then there are also some specific fundamentals that not everyone should know, but depend case by case. How do you know that? I think it's mainly about common sense and try to analyze what your goal is and try to take your main goal and try to deconstruct your main goal into smaller tasks. Of course, having a coach could help you a lot. I know b-boys usually don't want to have a coach, maybe because of their pride, maybe because breaking comes from the street. I don't know why actually. In other sports, having a coach is pretty common and everyone has a coach. In breaking, it's a little bit different, I think because of the roots of breaking. But still, I do recommend you hiring a coach if possible. Of course, it should be a good one. Instead of maybe trying moves and practicing like in some not correct ways and wasting a lot of years of your life to learn some specific moves or to reach some goals that you're never gonna reach. I don't want to say that just to promote my coaching plans, but I just want to say that honestly, because I think also for me, for myself, if I would be the coach of myself when I was younger, my progress would be much faster. But at that time, I just didn't have that knowledge and I didn't have the mindset, oh, I'm gonna hire a coach. Most of b-boys, they don't have this mindset. The strongest b-boys, especially kids nowadays, they have coaches. That's why they can do all these crazy moves. It's not like they learn by themselves. And that's why the level is getting higher and higher. So yeah, your coach doesn't necessarily have to be me, but I still recommend you to find a good coach. And if you're interested about my coaching plans, you can find a link in the description. And if you're interested about learning some specific moves like flare, windmill, air flare, and swipes, check out the PDF guides I made about them. You can find a link in the description as well. And see you next time with a new video. Yo ninjas!